My family kicked me out on my birthday after I refused to pay my brother's $100,000 debt. So I walked away, blew up their reputation with one email. "Happy birthday, Liam," my mother began, her voice upbeat and phony, as if she hadn't just guilt-tripped me an hour before for not volunteering to pay off John's vehicle loan. I sat at the end of the dining table, a slice of store-bought cake in front of me, and half-melted wax dripped from a crooked 30 candle. My father slouched across from me, one arm lazily stretched over the chair and the other holding a beer. My brother John, 28, unemployed and evidently averse to responsibilities, was scrolling through his phone with one hand while messaging with the other, using his new iPhone, which I had purchased. So I said, clearing my throat. My heart was racing, but I tried to remain calm. "We need to talk about the money." Dad grunted. Mom blinked. John did not look up. "I can't keep covering everything." I admitted I'm trying to build a future for myself. "I've been paying the mortgage here, covering utilities, groceries. I paid off John's second DUI fine last year. I need to cut back." John looked up. "You're acting like it's charity." I stared at him. "It is." He laughed. "Wow. Okay then." Dad leaned forward, eyes furrowed as if I had just offended the Pope. "Then start with your brother's 6F figure debt. That's the real issue, isn't it?" Mom gave him a sideways look as if she wished he hadn't said it aloud. John became quite still. "I'm not paying that," I replied quietly. "That's not my responsibility." The room got frigid. Nobody moved. Dad leaned back, his lips twisting into a scowl. "Well," she replied, "guess we know where you stand." When I returned from work the next day, my belongings, including my clothes, books, tools, and the laptop I used to freelance, were neatly arranged on the porch. The locks had changed. There was a note pinned to the door. "Consider what you've done." That is all it said. I remained there for quite some time, marveling at my mother's handwriting, which was crisp, exact, and unmistakable. I did not knock. I did not yell. I did not cry. I took a big breath, grabbed my stuff, and walked away. I then scheduled the message. The following morning, everything changed. To understand how we ended up with a birthday eviction and a note that felt like a slap, you have to go back 10 years. I was 20 years old when John totaled his first car. Of course, they were drunk. Mom cried. Dad screamed. And I, the golden oldest son with a steady job and no record, paid the towie and gave him a $3,000 loan for repairs. He never repaid it. It was supposed to be a one-time occurrence, but it somehow established a pattern. When John dropped out of college, it was my responsibility for not assisting him with his studies. When he lost 3 jobs in a year, I received a lesson on how some people simply struggle more. When he overdrafted his account, Mom would call me soft and guilt-ridden. "Liam, sweetheart, he's your brother. Can't you just cover it this once?" I always did. I paid the rent when John was evicted. I paid the insurance for his car, which he drove to parties while I walked to work. I bought groceries, paid our parents' property taxes when they fell behind, and still managed to pay for night classes to earn my electrical system certification. All the while, John spent his days in the basement working on music and doing nothing productive. What is the worst part? He did not even pretend to be grateful. He acted as if it was owed to him. "Liam's doing great," he'd add, waving his hand as if I were a faceless ATM. "He's got it. That's what big brothers are for." My parents ate it up. I could have moved out. But every time I mentioned it, Mom would get teary-eyed and say, "This house only feels like a home with you in it." Dad would remark, "Don't be dramatic," and remind me that I only paid a percentage of the costs, such as the phone plan, which wasn't enough. "What about John?" He'd smirk and say, "Why leave when you've got it so good?" Yes, I had it nice. I was working 60-hour weeks and barely seeing daylight while my brother borrowed money from me to buy new headphones. I was skipping lunch to save money while Dad used my paycheck to repair the air conditioner and encouraged me to be thankful I didn't have to deal with a landlord. It all boiled over 2 months before my birthday. I had just gotten home from a 14-hour shift when I saw John preparing a party. My gaming PC, which I had built piece by piece over 5 years, was set up in the living room and connected to a sound system. His friends had passed out on the couch. Beer bottles cluttered the floor. My keyboard was sticky. I did not yell. I just unplugged everything and returned everything to my room. The next morning, Mom gave me a lecture. "You embarrassed him," she continued, her tone caustic. "His friends saw you storming around like a maniac. They were using my stuff," I explained. "It's not just your house," she retorted. "Everything here is shared." The term shared struck me like a slap. Shared like the mortgage I paid, the groceries I purchased, and the electricity payment that physically came out of my account. That night, I reviewed my finances. I was really near. With just a few more months of savings, I'll be able to leave for good this time. Then John had a wonderful new business idea, cryptocurrency trading. He invested $25,000 from his school loans, which he had no intention of repaying, and lost everything in 2 weeks. He blamed the app, the market, and his buddies. He then turned to me. "You could spot me 10 grand, he remarked as if he were requesting a ride to the shop just to get me back on track. I laughed, and for the first time in years, I declined. That's when the tone changed. I wasn't dependable anymore. I was selfish, ungrateful, elitist. "You think you're better than us now?" Dad inquired one night after supper. "Just because you've got a little money in the bank." "I'm not better," I said. "I'm just tired." The next morning, John sent a tweet that he assumed I wouldn't see. It said, "Some people only give when they believe they can control you. Cut them off and let their true face appear." He received over 300 likes. I didn't say anything. Then came my birthday, and I foolishly and naively believed that we may be able to keep things amicable. A calm dinner, a tiny cake. There's no drama. Instead, I faced an ambush. Dad kept his eyes on me the entire time, daring me to bring up money. John is cracking jokes about how I should open my trust money, which does not exist. Mom smiled too brightly, as if she could keep everything under control with enough forced enthusiasm. The dam broke when I eventually declared, "I can't keep paying for everything." "Then start with your brother's 6-figure debt," Dad remarked. Not as a joke or a challenge, but as an expectation. And when I replied no, they did not dispute. They simply threw me out like rubbish. But they made a mistake. They forgot who taught me to be silent, to be patient, to never react. This time I had a plan. I did not respond to their note. I did not knock. I did not text, did not cry. I just scooped up my things, threw what I could into the back seat of my old Toyota, and drove to the cheapest motel I could find. One of those wayside motels where the air smelled like cigarettes and the vending machine ate your money without hesitation. I sat at the edge of the bed, the note still crumpled in my fist. "Consider what you did." I did. I thought long and hard. Then I scheduled the message. See, throughout the years, I've learned a few things. One of which is that each family has its own tale or folklore that they tell themselves. Ours went like this. Liam is dependable. Liam is always helpful. Liam always shows up. And because he always shows up, we can do whatever we like. They had no idea I'd been recording everything for the past 2 years, including every Venmo request, invoice transfer. Every time I help someone out, I save the receipt. Every passive-aggressive message, every guilt trip, every time they stated, "You're being dramatic," when I begged for boundaries, was recorded, saved, and dated. Then there was the letter I wrote months ago before my birthday when I first considered leaving. It was not a farewell letter. It was a confession about everything. How I paid off my second mortgage without informing them since the bank called me, not them. How I discovered John had stolen my identity to apply for a $15,000 personal loan, which was denied, thank God. But the inquiry remained on my credit report. How my parents knew and advised me not to seek charges. "Family sticks together," they remarked. I was stuck until I did not. That morning, after I was kicked out of the house I had paid for, I hit send. I didn't simply send it to them. I forwarded it to our entire family. My godmother in Tampa, Uncle Rob in New Jersey, my mother's relatives, my father's siblings, their church group, and everyone else, along with the receipts, screenshots, bank records, text messaging, vocal recordings. Everything is properly ordered. I even attached a spreadsheet titled "What Liam Actually Paid For." It became viral within our family in less than an hour. By lunchtime, my phone had 26 missed calls from Mom and 8 from Dad. John did not call. He sent one text message. "You didn't have to do that." It was frigid. I didn't respond. At 12:37 p.m., my Aunt Sylvia, whom I hadn't seen in years, sent me this message. Good for you. I've always known they were using you. I'm proud of you, honey. Then came the fallout. Apparently, my parents' reputation in their small suburban bubble meant more to them than I realized. The picture of the ideal, close-knit, morally upright family was destroyed. People began asking questions. Why was Liam paying the bills while John was on vacation? Why did the note on the door resemble something from a Lifetime movie? Why did John get new headphones, footwear, and tattoos while unemployed? Why did Liam reside in the basement as if he were a tenant despite paying for everything? Dad tried spinning it. We were giving him structure, he informed a relative. It was all agreed upon. Wrong move. I had attached a recording from the night they kicked me out. I'd been recording with my phone, which I had placed into my jacket pocket before supper. The voice note was very clear. Dad, then start with your brother's debts. Me? I am not paying that. Dad, now get out. Mom, consider what you did. They could not spin that. The kicker. I also reported a stolen identity case. I let it slide the first time. No more. When the police arrived at the house to question John about the bogus loan attempt, things became heated. A neighbor captured everything on video. Angry voices, a slammed door, and John ranting something about how he deserved a break. Someone, perhaps my mother, yelled, "We told you not to make this worse." That clip was shared on the local neighborhood Facebook group. And just like that, the family that used to gossip about other people's dramas became front-page news. I didn't see it happen. I was too busy moving into my new downtown apartment, a one-bedroom above a flower shop, quiet sunlight in the morning, a kitchen that did not smell of previous disputes. I paid the deposit with money that I should have saved all along. That night, I sat on the couch with no TV, only my laptop and some takeout, and watched the madness develop from afar. They tried calling me again dozens of times. When I did not respond, Mom showed up at my workplace. She waited in the lobby, her eyes red, carrying a Tupperware of my favorite dish as if it had been used for years. I met her outside. She opened her mouth, but I interrupted her. I'm not coming back, I explained. Come, even cold, Liam, she murmured. You're tearing this family apart. I laughed. No, I replied. I just stopped holding it together. She flinched, and for once, I did not feel guilty. That was the moment everything changed. Not only the familial dynamic, I could finally see them clearly. Not like powerless parents, not as a struggling brother, but as people who had made decisions repeatedly. They were now experiencing the repercussions. It's strange how silence can seem louder than screaming. For the first time in my life, I wasn't woken up by the sound of Jay's music rattling the drywall, or Dad throwing a tantrum while wearing a polo shirt. I wasn't avoiding Mom's passive-aggressive moods, waiting for the next emotional minefield. Instead, I experienced quiet. In the morning, I made coffee without checking to see if someone had used the last of the milk. I could leave my wallet on the counter without worrying that it would go gone. I wasn't required to justify every purchase, boundary, or breath. Nobody asked for money. Nobody requested explanations. Nobody texted me just to manipulate me. It was unsettling at first. I kept expecting the silence to cease, as if I'd walk in the door and find John sprawled on my couch, shoes on the cushions, begging if I could locate him again, but they never arrived. The calls did not stop at first. Mom left lengthy voicemails, her voice weak and laced with guilt. Liam, this isn't you. You've always been the strong one, the helper. Please don't let pride ruin our family. Dad sent only one text message. You should be proud of yourself. I did not respond. Eventually, the communication slowed and ceased. 3 weeks after moving out, I received a letter handwritten from John. It was surprisingly brief. I am aware that I made a mistake. I was only doing what they always allowed me to do. But now everything has turned against me. Mom and Dad are in a mess. Nobody talks to us anymore. You blew everything apart. I hope it was worth it. No apologies, only blame. That explained all I needed to know. I didn't respond. Instead, I set to work restoring what they attempted to take from me. I signed up for a coding boot camp, which I'd wanted to do for years, but had put off because we need help with the bills. This month, I began freelancing in the evenings, saving for the future I desired, not the one they forced me to fund. I found genuine friends, people who asked for nothing except honesty, People who were more concerned with who I was than with how much money I made. I joined a local climbing gym. I rediscovered my affinity for movement and risk, for pushing myself on my own terms, not hauling people who refused to move. Therapy was also helpful. It turns out that years of being the fixer leave unseen marks. My therapist referred to it as parentification, which occurs when a youngster is expected to act emotionally and financially like an adult. She helped me realize that I was never selfish. I was fatigued. Meanwhile, in the old house, they imploded. Mom needed to go back to work. She despised it. She'd spent the last decade playing home manager with someone else's money. Mine. Dad began drinking more. He apparently got into a heated argument with a neighbor who inquired about Liam's circumstances. According to what I've heard, John has finally landed a job at the gas station. It lasted for 6 days. He then blamed the manager as he always does. Extended relatives withdrew. They had seen too much. I heard too much. The evidence did not support the myth of our happy little family. And I didn't care. For the first time in my life, I wasn't attempting to repair it. I did not go to Thanksgiving. I spent it with a friend's family, who joked at the dinner table rather than walking on eggshells. I brought pies. They called me family and they meant it. At Christmas, I received a card from my godmother. Inside was a brief note. You deserve better and you finally claimed it. I am proud of you. I sobbed while reading it. Not because I was sad, because for the first time I felt understood. You know what happens after you start fire in your previous life? Nothing. There are no big explosions, no last-minute reconciliations, just silence. And it is the most beautiful thing I have ever heard. For the first time in 3 decades, my phone did not ring with guilt-inducing texts or last-minute money, please. There were no urgent calls about John losing his license, Dad needing help with his taxes, or Mom crying because we no longer feel like a family. They expected me to crawl back. They always have. They assumed I'd feel guilty. They expected me to feel alone. But this is what happened. I felt free. I could breathe. I could stand in my own space, which I had paid for, furnished, and cleaned without fear of someone stealing my food, taking my keys, or threatening my future. I'd been carrying my family on my shoulders for so long that I forgot how it felt to walk erect, to live for oneself, to be unnecessary. They used to refer to me as the family's backbone. No, I was the fuse. And now that I'm gone, the fire they kindled around me can only spread back to them. 2 months after the incident, I ran into John. Of course, it was in a petrol station. He was behind the counter with a crooked name tag. Eyes are sunken. He still had that phony swagger, but it looked worn out, like a poor imitation of a better version of himself. Liam, he answered, smirked. Didn't expect to see you in town. I just nodded. He leaned in. You know, you really screwed things up for them, right? I blinked. You mean when I stopped paying your debt? He shrugged. They're still dealing with the fallout. You really made a mess. I looked him dead in the eyes. You're mistaking me cleaning up my life for ruining yours. Then I paid for my gas and left him gaping at the door as if he couldn't believe the ATM had walked away. He still doesn't understand it. Neither of them do, because people like John do not learn from the repercussions. Not till the funds run out. The spotlight fades, and I'm not going to remain around to see how that plays out. Here's what no one tells you about leaving a dysfunctional family. The distance is not what hurts. It is the understanding that you have never been loved unconditionally. You were useful, valued for your silence, sacrifice, and bank account. But love without respect is not love. It is leverage. So when people ask, would you ever speak to them again? I do not hesitate. Number because I finally value myself more than their approval. I used to want their affirmation as much as oxygen. Every good grade, every promotion, every loan I repaid. A fervent hope that this time they would notice me. However, they only saw what I could do for them. Never knew who I was beneath it. Number I now see myself. A man paid off 3 mortgages that were not his. A man stayed up late to tutor his brother, who never tried. A man who kept the lights on in a home that always made him feel like a visitor. And finally, a man declared, no more. I created a new life from the ground up. This time the basis is not based on guilt or responsibility. It is serene. It is a decision. It is I spend my weekends hiking, reading, and attending classes. I'm learning photography, which I've been putting off for years, due to other pressing financial obligations. I'm dating someone who does not need saving, who asks about my day, who doesn't call me selfish for setting boundaries. Sometimes late at night, I lie in bed and reminisce about the youngster I used to be. The one who walked gingerly through his own home, who handed over his paycheck in a ritualistic manner, who believed that if he worked hard enough, they would love him the proper way. And I whisper, you got out. You made it. You don't owe them silence anymore. Let them chatter. Allow them to twist the story. Let them label me ungrateful, theatrical, and cold. Because here's the truth. They'll never speak in public. Without me, their system failed. Their falsehoods were ineffective. Without me, the truth eventually emerged. Loud, raw, undeniable, and I didn't even need to yell. I just walked away. And occasionally, the quietest act of disobedience is keeping the door locked.